You are
Right.
still 100% in charge of your marketing scheme, whatever that scheme may be.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, no, that, like, what, I don't know what, I
Your
had a little
evil I
caffeine.
guess it has to be an evil scheme.
It's not an evil
According
scheme, but yeah, like
according to
you're,
Stacey, it's like your marketing scheme is like this evil. We will take over the world.
what are we gonna do tonight, Wayne? But yeah, like
Stroke my white cat. You know.
right. Welcome to Pros Talking Prose. Today, Troy and I are going to talk to you more about the publishing and writing career, which is what we do here on this podcast. So it's nice to have you with us if you're new. If you're not new, like, subscribe, and follow, because we would love to fill you in on the news of what's going on in the publishing world, but also more or less how it applies to you as your author career is in whatever stage it's in. So Troy specializes in craft, where I specialize in business, and we're happy to combine our brains and become super twins. So here
Yes.
we are.
Super twin powers activate.
Super twin powers unite.
Welcome to Pros Talking Prose. Anyway.
Right. All right. So we're glad you're here with us. We're going to talk today a little bit about something that is near and dear to all of your hearts. We are going to say the M word, and that is marketing. We're going to talk about marketing your midlist and how that applies as opposed to putting all your energy into debut novels, and how this might help you in your longevity in your author career. Because I think there are kind of some misconceptions out there that, they put all their energy into the launch of a book, right? And then they wonder why it kind of peters out. So we're going to talk about why that kind of happens, and maybe where to put your energy and time and effort. And I'm going to start this with a story time, which is what I usually do. So earlier today, I was listening to, I can't remember her name, and I'm going to try to credit her here while I'm going to try to sideline over here and do a quick Google search for her name, side-eyed my YouTube history and see what her name is. But anyway, she was really awesome. She was being interviewed by another podcaster, and I think she has been around a while. I'm sorry to say I don't know everybody and all people that are out there in the world, but she made a really good point. And that was that a lot of times authors have this misconstrued idea that they have to put all this time and effort into the initial launch of their book. And really it's kind of like, because the way traditional publishing used to be, where you would set up pre-orders and you would have this big long window and you could but the reason you had pre-orders in the old days, and still to this day, people will set up this kind of strategy. But the reason you do that is so that you can have all of those sales hit on your launch day. And really, in theory, it was so that you can get on some lists like the USA Today bestseller list, or like the New York Times bestseller list, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to have all those sales hit within their week of tracking those book scans. Well, the thing is that if that's not something that's important to you, which for most authors out there, it really isn't. Once you understand and know why those lists are in process, like, we're not even going to talk about that, but most authors, you'll find out that you don't really care and it really doesn't make a difference. But one of the things that she mentioned is that once you kind of set that mindset aside, you come to realize that the point of a launch is really just to get another product out there. And what you really want to do is work on the longevity of that product and the viability of that product over the long time. Because once you put a book out there, guys, it doesn't die until you stop talking about it. So we'll talk about that.
And I love this, because one of the things that's changed, I'll just dive right in, that changed recently is, it used to be that your Amazon rankings, you could drive them up by a really quick spike.
Right.
So if you had a really good day, or even 2 days, your Amazon ranking would reflect that. It would jump up. Right now, what Amazon looks for is long-term sales.
Right.
Sales across the long term. Right. So, and
it actually,
so that's what impacts your rankings. So if you have 5 to 7 days of good sales, that's the kind of marketing strategy that you want to run if you're trying to pump up the Amazon algorithm.
Right.
But the other aspect of this is if you're choosing to operate outside of the algorithms now and go more towards things like direct sales or sales on other platforms, then that spike doesn't matter nearly as much as it used to.
Right.
Now, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with hitting those bestseller lists, but it's not the be all end all thing that people think it is. When we talk about your backlist and then kind of like being a mid-list author that's sustainable over the long term, what matters is those long-term sales, that long-term strategy, that getting new people to see that book over and over and over again and reach new audiences. And when you're doing a launch, what you're doing is satisfying your core audience, those people that have become super fans that are waiting for that next book.
Right.
So it becomes less important to spike on Amazon as it is to give those readers your book available wherever it is they actually buy books.
Yeah.
Which we would like that all to be direct. It's not. So that means that we have to have it available as many places as possible.
Right. And the strategy here is, guys, just understanding and knowing that, and it's the same thing Troy and I were talking about actually earlier about our own brands, is that basically what you want to do is you just want to be like easily seen and seen often. So the way to do that isn't necessarily to have that spike on the algorithm. In fact, there is some recent studies and stats coming out that actually counts against you to have a spike and then just to disappear and not have any sales. Like the algorithm will bury you faster than anything. It used to be that, I mean, even 3 years ago, the algorithm favored that initial push, and it really just doesn't treat you the same anymore. It used to do the recommend, also buys, like, these people that also bought this, you also bought this. Those would kind of push your sales a little bit. And really for longevity, that is a better place to be than just to have that initial spike. So really the goal here isn't necessarily to put a lot of effort into the debut novel as much as putting it into the longevity or the long game of your book. And so go ahead.
Yeah.
And by the way, I found her name. It's Anna David. So I'm going to credit her
gotcha.
with,
Okay.
So Anna David. Go ahead.
So one thing to consider too, if you are a brand new author throwing out a debut novel, first of all, one of your goals is to develop a backlist. Because it's really difficult to break even and even make money on a single book. Right. What you're counting on really is read through of your series, regardless of where you're selling. Now, that doesn't mean you can't make money on one book, and it doesn't mean that you can't write one book a year and make money. And still
people do it all the time.
Sustainable author career. Right. There are people that do this all the time. That are very successful.
I think this is even Brad Thor's, like, his writing, like, consistency.
Yeah,
I think he's just a book a year.
There's a pace. I mean, and what that means is that you have to be, if you're indie published, you have to be an excellent marketer.
Right.
Okay. So there's nothing wrong with that.
Actually, I'm gonna put a caveat there. Not just an indie author. You have to be an author, you have to be a good marketer.
Oh yeah.
Because even if you go traditional, that's a bubble that I hate bursting, but it's totally true. The bubble that I'm bursting here is that the traditional publishers do not market you the way people think that they do. So you are still 100% in charge of your marketing scheme, whatever that scheme may be. Like, what, I don't know what
your evil. I guess it has to be an evil scheme.
It's not an evil scheme, but
according to Stacey, it's like your marketing scheme is like this evil. We will take over the world.
What are we gonna do tonight, Wayne? But yeah, like
choke my white cat. Whatever.
1 million dollars. But anyway, so that's not what I'm talking about. But what I'm talking about is like your marketing plans, your marketing strategies that's a better, your marketing
Mm-hmm.
strategies, those are actually going to be 100% on your shoulders, regardless of the publishing model that you choose to go with. So even if
Right.
you get picked up by a traditional model, the only difference between that one and maybe an indie author is that the publisher gives you like almost a false sense of security that they're going to like have a plan,
Well,
or they may give you some contacts. They might have some like, oh, I'm going to put you in touch with these people, or they may be able to put some blurbs on your
right. Well,
book
and
or whatever.
if they're a good publisher, they should put some marketing behind your book. But the biggest myth out there is
Right.
that someone else marketing your book will be as effective as you are. Now, let me throw the caveat in there. Someone else advertising your book
Yeah,
can be as effective or more effective than you are, right? Because they know the ad platforms and the algorithm, but that is costing you money,
it's going to
right?
cost you
That is,
money.
and when you're published traditionally, you can, on Amazon and other platforms, advertise your traditionally published book.
Yeah.
But because of the profit margins, by the time the publisher takes their cut, and if you have an agent, by the time they take their cut, then suddenly you are in a position where you literally are going to struggle to break even, and rarely ever will you make money by
Yeah.
doing that. So just to lay that out there is like there's a difference between marketing and advertising. You should have a strategy for both, ideally, in
Mm-hmm.
your author world. And in order to maintain your author career, now sometimes what that means is, you have Amazon ads that you turn on and off. You don't run them all the time. You run
Right.
Facebook ads to different books depending upon what you're doing and what you're releasing in your series or whatever the case may be, like depending on what you're doing, right? So it doesn't mean just constantly advertising every single book that you put out, right? That's a
Mm-hmm.
foolish ad strategy. It's going to cost you lots of money and you're going to be very sad. So but the point of this is that your long-term marketing is marketing who you are as an author and in your books as a part of your brand,
Right.
right? Because that's the brand that sells is you. And we were
Right.
talking about this, Stacey and I were talking about it earlier, in this age of, and I think I'll explain it in a little bit, but I think there's going to be a
Mm-hmm.
few different types of books going into the future. And I think that things like what I'm calling human generated content are going to become scarcer and therefore more valuable.
Right.
Right. I think that's going to shift some things in the publishing industry. I don't think we've seen the full effect of that yet. And I don't think we will. It's going to take a little while for things to shake out into that shape.
Right. I
But
agree.
the point is that one of the things that's going to win you fans in this age is showing them that you are unique in your
Yeah.
humanity and your creation of your product, because that's what they're there for. They're there for something unique, something scarce, something that's you, you
That's
know.
what's
So,
really interesting is like we're seeing this more and more with TikTok shop brands and Kickstarter projects and things like that. Well, and let me just throw in a little caution. If you're going to run a Kickstarter, be very prepared to fulfill that Kickstarter promise, right?
mhm,
Don't shaft your backers,
it'll only
but
happen once. It'll
yeah,
only
because
happen
you
once.
won't be around much longer after that. But I do want to tear down the fantasy about the whole idea of making a splash and that your debut novel is like it's gonna make you a breakout author, and it's gonna, like there's all
Yeah.
these unicorn ideas, and they're like very fancy. They're all fancy and they all sound great. And believe it or not, I've even bought into the hype a little bit, that's like, that's how you get out there and you get yourself noticed. But really what I've noticed, it's very much like a firecracker versus a fountain, like for
Hmm.
4th of July. Like a firecracker is just that short bam, whereas a fountain is like, there's the slow burn, and you see this long
Hmm.
fire, and there's like these last, and it goes on for minutes depending on how much effort and how much money you've spent on the firework. But it's just like that, it's that difference. It's like one's really
Hmm.
fast and abrupt and it fizzles out really quick, and then but it's loud, but it goes away. And then the fountain is your mid-list, guys. The fountain is like, it's more of a model. And like Troy said, if you have just one book, if you're just starting with one book, I don't want you to think that means that you're not in it for, the long game. You are.
Well, and that I don't want to say that your debut novel can't be your breakout.
Right.
It is possible, but the reason we call that abnormal or a lightning strike or whatever is because it rarely happens. And the truth of the matter is, what rarely happens is that your book 2 is just as successful. If you guys have seen my interview with Vincent Zandri on my YouTube channel, like we talked about this, right? What happened, man? Dream thing for him, 90 days out of writing school, you get a 6-figure deal, 3-book deal from a publisher, boom, you're on your way until book 1 doesn't earn out, and then book 2 never gets published. Right? I mean, this is the heart of this, is that the idea is to be sustainable. So sometimes that big flash, as fun as it is, because I've experienced that big flash, as
it can be fun
as that is, and as good of a ride as that is for a few minutes, it's like a roller coaster, right? Pretty soon you come around that last turn and everything comes to a stop. And you've got to decide how to get the roller coaster onto train tracks instead, that give you a long-term journey across the country.
Right.
Because the roller coaster was fun, but the roller coaster does not pay your bills, does not satisfy your readers, and does not a career make.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that we want to do right now is like, I want to diagnose this behavior a little bit. And the first thing I want everybody to understand and kind of like, it's really, really hard. And sometimes it's difficult for me because I have anxiety disorder. So I understand what this feels like when your anxiety's on and people are trying to logically, well, why do you feel that way? That doesn't make any sense. Well, I can't make sense of it. Like stop talking. This is just the way I feel. Okay. But my poor husband, who has no anxiety ever, he has no idea how this even works, but there is an emotional attachment that we have to our first book. I know what this feels like, guys. I have emotional attachments to the books that you guys put in my queue. I have emotional attachments to my own books. I have my own insecurities and issues with my own writing and what I put out there. Even these YouTube videos, it took a long time for me to go ahead and say, oh, screw it, I don't care what people think. It took a long time for me to get to that point, but there is an emotional attachment to that. Like, it's one of those things where I have to constantly remind myself it's okay to let this go. And there is like my daughter, she has perfectionism really bad. There, like one of the things that she struggles with is like letting go of projects because she's worried that they're not perfect. And it wasn't until I started telling her, I don't care how perfect the videos are, just put them out there, because it's just by not putting them out there, we're not getting the work done. That she finally started to let go and realize that it wasn't that important to begin with. And I think that's kind of part of this thing about the debut novel, is like, there's this idea that like, you have to have the launch perfect. You have to have like all your metadata has to be perfect. Like there has to be a million people just waiting in the wings to buy your book. And if they aren't, the first reaction is, oh, well, I failed then. So I'm not good at this book business.
And I'm not a real writer.
And I'm not a real writer.
Well,
which is totally not true.
Let me like, gosh, I don't even know how I want to throw this out there, because it's perfectly okay to have the emotional attachment for a moment. But you can't hang on to it, because there's a couple things to understand immediately, and that any writer who's been doing this for a very long time. It's really funny because I was working with Vincent on editing one of his books, and he wrote it, I mean, not
years
that long ago.
Didn't he write it years ago?
It was a few years ago, but I mean, it's not ancient history. Oh. But he's reading it going, I would not write this way now.
Right.
Because as a writer, you constantly
evolve,
growing and learning. And so no matter how good you think it is at this moment, and how close to perfect it is, when you release your debut novel, I guarantee you 5 years from now, you're going to hate that novel. And I mean, and you will actually loathe it. You'll be like, I can't believe that thing is still out there for people to read. And yet people will still be reading and enjoying it.
Look at Stephen King's first books. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it was good, but it's never going to be perfect because and this is, the longer I'm in this game, the more I'm convinced we never reach perfection in this game of writing.
Never.
We are constantly learning, constantly evolving, constantly changing. So the book that I write today, 5 years from now, I'm not going to like that book either, because, you know what I mean? Because I'm going to see, oh, I could have done that so much better, right? But that's 5 years from now me, that's future me, who I can't bring here to write this book, right? So letting go of that emotional attachment of this thing has to be perfect is something you absolutely have to do somehow, because none of your books are ever going to be perfect, no matter how many you write. And as much as I know Vince is going to joke about it in the comments about how perfect his books are now, but I mean, in some ways, you guys have to understand that even as much as we joke about it as writers and stuff like that, like, it is true. Like, your book will not be perfect, and that is okay. It is done as well as you can get it at this moment, at this time. And if you don't publish anything until it's perfect, you won't publish anything ever.
Right. So I want you to stop thinking of your books. I want you to stop thinking of your books as kind of like a viral, like going viral. And I want you to think more about like, how do I stay visible? Like, how do I think about this in terms of like the longevity? And like Troy said, he there's a difference between marketing and advertising. So I want you to think about marketing as your long-term, long tail strategy, right? Marketing is actually that's just a word that means keeping your book relevant, always talking about it. It's always something that's there. Marketing is just always ongoing.
Marketing is showing up.
It's just showing up, right? Right. So it's not necessarily like marketing. When we talk about marketing, we're not talking about like advertising campaigns or, book club deals or anything like that. That is not marketing. That's part of marketing, but those are campaigns, and they're short-term strategies, advertising, right?
They cost you money.
And they cost money.
They cost money and time. Most of the time, they cost you both of those.
Energy, blood, sweat, and tears.
Yes.
All of it.
Because this is such a wonderful industry. We always like to tell you how pleasant it is.
We love to tell and I know there's a million of you out there. No, there's not. There's not a million of you out there. There's a million authors out there somewhere. Whoever within the sound of my voice who will ever hear this will agree that marketing as an author is a nightmare. And it's because, and I'll tell you why. Here's the magic. Why is it awful? The reason it's awful is because it's never, ever the same. And it's never going to be the same for any one person ever.
Yeah.
Because everybody's marketing strategy is unique too. There's variables here, but I'm going to tell you what the variables are. The variables are your book, your product, your genre, your marketing strategy, your comfort zone, your brand, your readers, and the algorithm and how that fits all in there too. Like, there's a bazillion things playing a part in making sure eyeballs get on your book. And many of those things you cannot control.
Yes, they're not under your control.
They're not in your control. So authors hate this because there's no plug and play. There's no, if I do this, I get this. And there's a lot of people out there that will tell you this is the magic formula. This is how you do it. But what's crazy about that is that I've had a lot of authors buy into those, and maybe they work for a little bit, or they work but not to the same extent, because again, it's market, genre, readers, algorithm, timing, all kinds of things. There's too many things going on.
So there's a couple things to talk about and a couple examples here, but one of them is this on the advertising side of things. So there's two people that I super respect when it comes to Facebook ads. Well, there's probably 3 to 4 people I really respect when it comes to Facebook ads. They know exactly what they're doing, or I should say, they knew exactly what they were doing until 6 months ago when Facebook dropped this update known as Andromeda, and it messed up everything. So the strategy that you were using, well, now about 7, 8 months ago, will literally not work today.
Right.
Like it will, if you took a class a year ago about Facebook ads, that strategy will not work today. So I've seen Melissa Storm and Matthew Holmes completely revamp. In fact, Matthew Holmes pulled his Facebook course for authors down and wasn't selling it while he redid it, because he was like, if anybody buys this right now and tries it, it's going to fail.
Right.
Right. And this is in the last 6 months, they've had to rebuild and re-understand how Facebook ads work.
What's
and
crazy
as
about
authors,
that?
we're like,
yeah. But what's crazy about that is they're going to put these new projects back up and they're going to say, okay, I figured it back out. But what's crazy is that Facebook's going to do it again. Google's going to do it again. Amazon's going to do it again. And AI keeps
is changing
screwing with
everything.
it all the time. And it's never, I mean, just if you don't believe me, just look at the YouTubers right now throwing their temper tantrums about the algorithm, because they're all up in arms.
Changing.
Yeah, because the algorithm's changing.
The other thing that's happening is, let's look at what's happening with AI content on like TikTok, right? Because everybody thought, oh, this is a great idea. But right now, the things that are going viral is the things that are human things that are put on TikTok. Now, it's harder to get something that's AI to go viral. It can happen. And if it's the right thing, if it's funny or whatever, but if it's
funny always works.
If it's a product thing that you're trying to advertise, there's a whole baby Trump channel that's hilarious. I mean, even if you like Trump, it's him and his staff all as like little babies, and they're like doing this stuff. You see little baby reels and stuff.
Yes,
like that,
I have.
The baby construction workers and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, now they've got there's a whole channel that's like the president, his cabinet, and all the people. And it's hilarious, and it goes viral on TikTok all the time, right? But the reason is because of the humor element of it, not because of the AI element.
So good news, if you're funny, you're going to make it.
If you're funny, you're going to be okay, right? But I mean, the other thing is that this depends on is authors, a whole bunch of you out there are introverts. And so when I tell you to make a TikTok video with your face in it, you are terrified.
Some of you are probably going, where's my depends?
Terrified. Yeah, exactly.
Like I have
which is also on it. Never mind.
Don't talk about that. But I do have I have a really sweet author that's near and dear to our hearts. I mean, I love him to pieces. You're editing his upcoming novel right now, actually, but absolutely love him. And one of the things that he found me, not for editing, but for publishing, he wanted to have help with publishing. And that's how he came across me, and he wanted me to show him how to publish his book. So I, got him through that. One of the first things he saw in my course was like, you have to kind of become the brand, which is very hard for authors to understand. And no, what can't I hide behind my pen name and just pretend to be somebody else? Yes, but you still have to become the brand. So it was really, really difficult for him to understand and embrace that. And, I think one of the things, I don't know if I'm not going to take credit for this, but one of the things that he did realize is that, and I'm going to credit Ashley with this actually, because she's, she's clever, but she decided, my sexy author husband, who's a cop and who works out, as a CrossFit, she leaned in hard with that and got my sweet little Tyler to like show his workouts on video and be funny. And like, and it's really endeared them on TikTok. They've got quite the following and they do really well in their
Yep.
TikTok shop. And they've got, and it's because they've leaned into this and they've kind of realized, okay, like
Right.
people
And
relate to me, right? But it
what's
was
cool
hard for
is his
him.
books are not funny.
No, they're not. They're
Like
thrillers. They're
these are
noir
serious
thrillers.
mystery, thrillers that got a dark edge to them,
Yeah, he's a
that
little,
are that are
a little dark.
you know
Yeah, you're right.
that are a real a little dark, a little rough, right? But it doesn't matter. I'm going to give you another example. There's this gal named Maggie. What is her last name? Beeler, I think is what it is, something like that, right? And what she's done is she created these books, and they're kind of funny, humorous books. But then she's created inside the books, she creates cocktails that are like related to the book and related to the stories. Well, now she has something called Trope Tales, and she sells cocktail mixes that
Is it
go with
Maggie
her book.
Hoffman?
Maggie, no, not Maggie Hoffman. Maggie,
I want to
oh,
look this person up.
man, hang
Wait,
on,
wait, what
I
does she
can
call
find
them?
her.
What kind of cocktails?
Trope Tales,
Trope
because
tales.
tropes, you know?
Okay.
And she is a person who is like not a super extrovert, but has forced herself to be an extrovert. Let me see if I can find her. Maggie Beeler,
Yeah, Maggie.
Beeler.
Okay, Maggie
Um,
Beeler. Okay, cute. Okay,
yes,
I'm loving
but
this.
Trope Tales, right? And so she has her cocktail mixes that go with her books are in stores, like
Oh,
in
good for
grocery stores
her. That's a
around the
good way.
country.
Go
Like
outside your
she
book there.
took the
Good
idea of
job.
going beyond the book, and I mean,
Good job.
and took it to the next level. Now, she is not a super extrovert, but she has learned that if she wants to sell books and sell these things, she has to go out and be the face of the brand. Now, she's cute, she's got that cute little smile, stuff
People
like
got to
that.
understand that even
But,
if you don't think you're cute, you are cute.
well,
Trust
and
me,
use it.
you're going to find
Use
somebody
it.
that's like, oh my gosh, this
Oh,
person
yeah.
is just like me. And they're going to
Or they're
love
going
it.
to think this person's adorable, and you can think I am a freaking slob. I'm walking around, my hair sticking up all the time. Everybody's like, that's on brand. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude?
Troy.
Like, my hair's a mess. I mean, but you know what I mean? Like, there's
You
things
just
that
lean into the weirdness.
make you
Yeah.
and make you different and weird, and people like those things.
People
They don't
like
want the avatar of you that has perfect hair. They
it
want
really
you
don't. They want
as
you.
you are.
They want
As you are.
the more authentic you are, the better and more liked you'll
Mhm.
be, especially today, especially right now.
Mhm.
There's the Gen Z, Gen Alphas, they are looking for authentic and they are sick and tired of the manufactured perfectness. They don't
Right.
want it. They reject it just offhand. They will not have anything
Yep.
to do with it. So the better you will find more success being more authentic and leaning into your weirdness and the quirkiness and the perfectionism is actually it's off brand right now, which
Yeah.
is one of the reasons why
Perfectionism is a poor choice right now.
it's a bad way to go. It's one of the reasons why Troy and I don't heavily edit our videos. We want you to see
Yeah.
all the weirdness because
Or
this is who
heavily
we are.
script them. If
Yeah.
you take my courses that I have, you will find in some of them that I will mess up a word in the middle of the course, and I will not edit
You,
it out. I will leave
Troy?
it. I know I have the
What?
silky, wonderful voice and I just say everything perfectly, except that I don't, right? And so unless I'm like, there's been a couple times where I sneeze or cough or whatever, and I'm not putting that on there. But if I just screw up a word or something, I'm like belligerence. No, I mean beautiful, whatever.
Yeah.
Then I'll just leave it. And part of that is because I want those courses to be authentic, like you're having a conversation with me. I do not
Yeah.
want them to be polished and edited by Descript so there's not a single anywhere in the
Well, not only
thing,
that, it
because
feels
it
unnatural and people
it
don't,
feels
it just feels,
scripted, like you're just
yeah.
looking at the camera and reading a script. Well, anybody can do that. What makes you unique as a teacher is what you know and what you impart, but also the way you teach it.
So when you
Right?
go on to these social media platforms and these places and you're peddling your book, understand and know that what people are looking for is they're looking for you to tell them exactly why they want to like buy your book and be part of your super fan group. Really, that's what
Mhm.
they're looking for from you. So just go ahead and tell them, and don't be
Yeah.
afraid to
Be
be
yourself.
criticized, but be yourself.
Even
Um,
if it's awkward, be yourself because people are going to like that. The other thing, this is why people are using 1-star reviews in
yeah.
their ads a lot of times, is because people want to see that you're genuine and that sometimes people don't like you and don't like your stuff. And it's actually perfectly
It's
okay
okay.
because that may mean that it's something that they like.
Yeah,
You know, my
exactly. And
favorite bad language review might get me some readers if they go and
yeah,
find that, you
it
know what I
was
mean? Like,
I love telling the story about my author Ben Vogt. He published his first book with me before his 17th birthday. He wanted to be a 16-year-old author, so he hit that goal, and we published his first book, Revolt, and it was really great. But his grandmother went on there and gave a review, and his grandmother gave him a 3-star review. Poor Ben was devastated. He was like, Grandma, why? And he
oh,
was like, why would she do
man.
this to me? And I said, oh my gosh, let's read the review. Well, the review was, it's just too violent for my taste. And I was like, perfect.
That is a perfect review.
That is
That
a
is a
great
perfect
review.
review. You know, that's, I mean, and I mean, honestly, guys, too, please, your family is probably not, don't give them your books for Christmas presents. Please don't do, this is a whole other thing. That's not marketing. That's not advertising.
Yeah.
That's making Thanksgiving more awkward. Okay. That's just not, I mean, if that's even
Thanksgiving.
possible.
How is
Because
that even
you don't want to
possible?
go, so what did you think of my book? And they're like, did you give me a book?
Oh, that
Or,
totally
oh,
reminds
I
me.
just haven't read it yet. I
That
mean,
totally
God, don't make
reminds
it
me.
awkward
I
for yourself.
remember
Anyway,
I just was listening to an interview with Miley Cyrus. I can't remember what it was, how long ago this interview took place, but it was funny because they were asking her about her past, and like she says, it wasn't until I got a little bit older and a little bit wiser that I realized that I was making decisions in my professional career that was embarrassing my family. And it was
mhm,
like, and she was like, and it was like my brother and sister didn't want to go to school because of me and what I was doing and how I was presenting myself to my public and my fans. And she goes, it made things very awkward. But it took some maturity for her to admit that she was making mistakes, but it didn't
right.
come out until later that she was like, oh yeah, that was, see, now that's what's in that. And let's use Miley Cyrus as an example here. This woman's a mogul in her industry right now, right? Like everyone knows who Miley Cyrus is. If you don't know who Miley Cyrus is, it's probably because you're up for your AARP renewal. And I,
Either that or you got hit on the head really sharply
oh
and you
yeah,
also
yeah.
don't remember your own childhood.
That could
So,
be. But Miley Cyrus, like, Hannah Montana, she is like an icon at this stage, right? She is a Disney icon at this stage. And she has done amazing things and some really stupid things, a lot like Madonna. The difference between Miley Cyrus and
yeah,
Madonna is that Miley has come out and said, I've kind of screwed up a few times. Whereas Madonna, you'll never catch her saying that because she's a massive narcissist. But Miley, she's like had the ideas like, oh, okay, yeah, like I could probably revise and repeat or revise and revise. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
To be able to say that I've made a mistake and I'm willing to like, okay, let's move on from there. That is very mature. And as an author, that is something to really kind of embrace. And it's one of those
oh,
things that we can all
for
do
sure.
as you're revising books and as you're getting better. Don't go back and redo. Screw that. Just move on. Keep plowing
Right.
forward. So
Exactly.
that moves right into what a mid list is. So I'm going to say that when you are a writer and you are hopefully doing this for an author career, if you are, that means your mid list is anywhere beyond book one. It's book 2s through 10 and beyond, right? So it's constant output. and it's not a one-hit wonder. That is what a midlist is. So whenever you're working on a new book, you want that new book to be pointing to, oh, look at all these old ones too. Like if you liked this, look at all this that I have. Or maybe somebody discovers one of your old things and you can say, oh, look at the new stuff I've got. And so what you're trying to do is you're kind of trying to create this ability for you to capture an audience and keep them in your fan base. And Troy and I, we talk about this a lot. We talk about developing super fans. We talk about bringing them into your system and holding them there in a way that whenever you release something new or you have a new idea or a new piece of content, they are there to devour it and tell their friends. Those are your super fans. So what you need to do with your mid list is you need to build trust. And what you'll hear me talk about in the business side of things is talking about fulfilling that reader promise. And you're going to hear this a lot if you're kind of get into the book business world. You're going to hear reader promise. And what reader promise is, it's the promise that you're making as a content creator, as a book writer, that your book is going to fulfill a need for that reader. And in the case of fiction, you give them a book cover. I don't have my books in front of me, but like, I'll just say right here, like this is IBPA. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Oh, I love that book. That's a good book.
I know.
Okay.
So funny.
It's one of my favorites. So like on that book cover, you're giving them a title and you're giving them kind of a tone that your book is going to supply, whether it be for entertainment or mystery or, whatever you're giving that reader. And you're telling them with that book, I'm going to be in this genre and you're going to get this kind of entertainment factor with this book. And the book blurb kind of helps clinch that deal, right? If they get that book and you've already given them all that, they bought that book and now they're reading it. And if you don't fulfill those reader promises, if you don't fulfill the promise that this is going to supply this kind of satisfactory whatever
story,
they're going to leave you. If you're lucky, they're going to leave you a bad review. If you're not lucky, they're just going to walk away and never talk about or buy another thing from you again. That's the worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is you never hear from them. Okay.
Right.
We don't want that. We would rather have a bad review than no review. And we would rather have a good review than a bad review. Right. So that's kind of what, and unless you are providing a good reader promise that can be fulfilled, then you are not going to have a successful author business. So you have got to make sure that when you're building a product, that you are fulfilling that reader promise with your product. You're going to have a book that fulfills all those expectations for that reader. So you're building trust with your readers when you have a mid list that fulfills those promises, right? So that's why it's important that you understand genre. That's why it's important. It's not necessarily because you're like, I don't want to be defined by constraints. That's not what this is about. This is actually
because you don't have to be.
This is not what that's about.
To be.
This is about finding your audience.
Right. And here's the thing. So to take a step back, and I'm not going to harp on this because it's almost like a whole different podcast, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things that we talk about all the time is you need a good book that fulfills those promises. Now, let me just clarify. I didn't say a great book.
No.
I said
good book.
One that's not bad, that's good.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be great, but it has to be good and it has to fulfill those promises. The ideal situation is that someone can enter your brand at any point with any book at any part of any series and say, yes, I like this. I want more. Now, when you have more than one series and more than one type of book going on, what that means is you may have readers that overlap, and those are your super fans, but you may also have readers that don't overlap.
Right.
So like my Max Boucher series, dark, noir, detective, all that kind of stuff. The Call of Karen, one long junior high joke. Okay. Now, is there an overlap of audience? A little bit, but people don't necessarily want to read Lovecraftian horror romantic comedy followed by mystery thriller, right? That's two different audiences. Super fans are just like Troy Lambert's writing voice might read both.
Yeah.
But that's going to be the rare person, right? Because those two don't have a lot of overlap. Unless you have the comfort and the ability of writing just about anything and having people follow you anyway because they really love your voice, understanding genre in your series is really important. So your craft, and when that comes into play is in revisions, please don't try
Yeah.
thinking this through in your draft. Just draft the book.
Just draft the book.
Just draft the book. But you should keep in mind, kind of figure out what your author voice is and what kind of writer are you. 90% of my time of the stuff that I create is mystery thriller, something along that line. It's either a mystery because you're figuring something out along with the detective, or it's a thriller, right? But it's generally not something funny over here. And even that has a certain amount of action, adventure, thriller elements, right? Because I can't help myself, right? That's my author voice. So it's good to find your author voice, find your craft, improve your craft, hone your craft, and write better and better books within this realm of genres that have overlap, ideally. Right. Going off and writing that book, well, anyway, that wasn't a planned thing anyway. That's a whole other story. But that staying within that genre helped people to understand what kind of author that you are, what kind of writer that you are, and what kind of books they can expect from you. But like, we were talking to Vincent Zandri the other day, and I know I keep bringing him up, but we were talking to him the other day about putting out some limited edition hardcovers of some of his books.
Yeah.
And we were talking about which ones to start with and which one of his series has the biggest audience.
Right.
Because all of them have unique audiences, but one in particular has a larger audience than the rest and one that's more easily accessible through things like Kickstarter and things like that. So that's really good to know, right? But even though his are pretty close, like they all kind of overlap, there are some that are just more popular than others. So that is okay too. So understand that your backlist doesn't have to be this cohesive single series or, it can be if you want to be Lee Child and write Jack Reacher the rest of your life. Awesome. Do it. Go for it.
But even Lee Child has veered off. I mean, everybody kind of does that every once in a while.
He writes other things. Diane Capri writes the Finding Reacher series, which follows Jack Reacher, which is her most popular series. And she has two other detective series that are running right now as well. Right.
Yeah.
So even though that one, you would consider that her main, her most popular and the one that, probably pays most of her bills, but the other ones, they're still there. They still work. She still enjoys writing those. And there are plenty of readers that follow those enough to make it worth her while to continue writing them. So just understanding your mid list and even your far back list is a matter of understanding like what sells, what do people like, and what am I trying to accomplish with that series? What I'm trying to accomplish is get people to like me and my writing.
Exactly. So if you didn't pick up on that, your mid list is going to give you stability. It's going to actually give you data. And that's really what's most important in a business, right? You need to have stability and data. So your mid list is where you're going to stop guessing how your business needs to be run. And it's going to actually teach you how your business needs to be run. And it's going to actually help you focus on what works and what doesn't so that you know where to put your money and your time. So that's really the most important thing that I want you to understand about what a mid list is and what it can do for you. But let's talk about ROIs. Okay. So a debut novel, if you're putting a lot of money into a debut model, a debut like novel, and you're like pushing for this launch, it can cost you a lot of money up front to do that. And you're not going to really see, it's going to be a pretty low predictability. You're going to have low predictability on your outcomes because you're not going to really know. You're guessing. You're kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm hoping. It's almost like a bet that you're making, like I'm betting that this is going to make me money, but you really aren't going to be able to see very good statistics on that because again, it's not something that you can really gauge over a long period of time. And it's something you have to you need more data, but your mid list, well, it's over time, you can see if when you pump money into it, how much of a return you're going to get. And you're going to see a better conversion rate, or at least you're going to be able to see better conversion numbers. You're going to be able to tell what's converting and what's not. And so really it becomes an asset. Your mid-list is more of like that IP asset that I'm always talking about, like making sure that you can like leverage that as you're building that author career, right? And like we've talked about before, you know, it'll help you actually build those super fans, and it'll also help you kind of go beyond the book too, because then you can figure out where people are spending most of their time and effort in those conversions and where they're coming in. So you can actually go, okay, you know, well, a t-shirt for this book might be good because people might like people like that. Kind of like this whole thing with, I mean, a good example, because it's really hot right now, is like Andy Weir's Amaze, like, right? Like you go around everywhere and everyone's like, Amaze. And I'm like
Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Yeah.
You know,
right?
like I walked by this guy's car the other day and I see a bumper sticker that says, God damn it, donut, you know, and then I'm like,
oh,
I know you. We don't know each other, but I know you. Right. But, but I mean, and part of this too is that you can get data that influences what you write next in your writing career. Because we all want to write whatever we want to write, right? But if I want to make money and I want to launch something that I know will go somewhere, I launch another Mac Boucher thriller, which is coming soon, by the way. But anyway,
good.
And why do I do that? Well, because I know that'll make money. I have an audience for that. There are people waiting for that book, right? So I know that if I release 2 of those books this year, it'll be a good year for writing income, right? Because I know that because I have data.
Right.
You know, I know that if I push into certain parts of the solitaire series and sell that then immediately it makes money. Why does it make money? Well, because I have data that proves that if I push this is what happens. I get listened through to this part, yada, 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 right? And I know that if I do some things like, you know, maybe I'm going to create an app, maybe I'm going to create a really immersive website around that or whatever, that gives me the more data that, hey, this is popular, so let's lean into that so we can make more money off of it. So it helps you make business decisions and craft decisions too. Like, what book do you write next? What series do you write another book in? And that's because you know which ones are going to make you money. You know which ones have a better return on your investment. So that data comes from longevity. So it may be that your debut novel takes off right away, pretty quick, and you get some initial sales. But what happens over the long term is really what matters, because that tells you, are people sharing it with their friends? Is my advertising being effective? Is my marketing and being out there and talking about this book being effective? You know, the fact that, like, using the example of Maggie, that she got her cocktail mixes into stores tells her she's doing the right thing.
Like,
right?
she's
what she should do is
fan.
write another book in that series, create another cocktail that goes with that book in that series. And now she's got 2 products to sell immediately, right? So, but she has data to prove that over time. So part of this business of being a writer is being patient and understanding that your mid-list, and no matter where you are in your list, right, that is what gives you the solid data that enables you to do business planning, to do cash forecasting, to do things like, I know if I get a BookBub deal for that book, that every time it makes money, and that it gets accepted for BookBub deals because it makes money for me every time, means it makes money for BookBub every time too. So everybody's happy, right? So you know this, you have data that you can prove these things about. So everything takes time. So relax. I mean, and what I mean by relax is not stop working. Don't
trying
stop
to force
working, but stop trying to
but
force things to
things
happen.
to happen.
Yeah.
You can't force magic, guys. So I'm gonna shift into some strategy here really quick. And one of the things we mentioned earlier was a little bit about going wide and what that really means. And I'm gonna define that for you. So when you hear going wide, you're gonna hear that, you're gonna put yourself in multiple markets so that you are able to be found and seen by anyone and everyone across all of those markets, right? So anywhere somebody buys a book, they're going to be able to find you. That's really what you want to do. Now, a lot of authors, I've heard them lean into the fact that this is like a bad idea and a bad strategy because they feel like they have to it points to too many things. Like there's too many, I'm spread too thin. And I feel like I have to tell everybody that I'm on all these different places. That's not the case. And even with this draft to digital recent thing, people they're really scared by that. They're scared by the fact that they have to pay $12 a year if they don't get $100 in sales that year. So they delist their books immediately because they're like, oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that because I don't want to put my energy and time into trying to focus, people towards that outlet. I want to stay here. That's all well and good. But what I would recommend is that you still consider, even if you're consider it a subscription cost, but even if you do that and you don't see many sales by that through that outlet, it's like you don't know when lightning will strike. You just don't know where. And so it's just kind of one of those things where I always tell people that it's best to kind of just cover your bases and then just point people to your favorite channel. And my favorite channel for book sales is going to always be direct sales for a couple of reasons. One, they're your customer, not the platform's customer. And two, you're getting the most royalties out of that deal. So, when you're selling across other platforms, you're just consider it a marketing strategy. That you're just
and a marketing cost,
right?
Because I'll just add the only thing you need to know about going wide, right? Unless with a few exceptions, unless you're in certain genres that do exceptionally well in Kindle Unlimited, which I would even argue then the way page reads are fluctuating and the price of those fluctuating, I still don't think it's a great idea, but you could argue for it.
There's a lot of people that are still doing it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. If you are in a genre and you get a lot of page reads on your books and that is working for you, hey, do what works for your career, right? I don't want to put shade on anybody, but going wide means the only thing you need to know about it is that one sale on Barnes & Noble is better than no sales and a ticked off customer because they can't find your book.
Exactly. And so that's kind
the
of
only
what
thing that matters. One sale
matters.
Zero.
Yeah. Right? So I want you to think of it as kind of, well, like I said, just like a blanket that you're laying across all of the land so that you can capture any sales that could possibly come your way. But it's Myron Golden. I was listening to a video of his recently, and he was talking about his whole titling books and how his strategy of that. But anyway, one of the things that I found interesting is that he said his books are on Amazon. You can get his ebook on Amazon, but that's not where he drives traffic. He drives traffic to his paper books that he sells on his website because one, they pay him more. And as an entrepreneur, now this is a businessman. This is not an author, although he has 3 or 4 books out. He doesn't rely on his book sales. He's using his book sales as part of a sales funnel to drive people towards his programs that he offers. But my point is that he's driving traffic to his website because he knows when they come to his website to get his books, he's capturing that data and they become his customer, not Amazon's customer, his customer, right. Not Barnes and Noble's customer. The books are there. People can find them there, but he sells them on his website. And so, that's what he's doing. So when you're running ads, you have marketing, right? But when you're running ads, you want to drive those ads to your website. So if you don't already have a website, that's the first thing I tell my clients to get before they even start writing a book or before they're even finished is get a website. And for simplicity, I would always, at this point, I'm always recommending Tertulia for authors because it's basic, it's easy. They have the right mindset about selling books, right? So it's very, very simple, very basic, very easy, very demure. very
and
cute
they have some good options for you to sell direct, even if you're new and just starting out at selling your books directly on your website. So, but I mean, I like your point, because I will tell you this: when you point all your traffic towards your own website to get people to buy your physical books there, people will buy your book on other platforms.
Yeah, they will.
Because what will happen is, and I've done it myself, so I know it's true, is you will go, okay, well, maybe I just want the ebook of that book. And on his website, all he has is the paperback, right? Or the hardcover.
He only has paperbacks on his website.
And so I look at Amazon using the title and the author and buy the book. And I will see that the book also has good rankings on Amazon as well as on his own website, because people are doing that. People are always like, oh, you have to include the link. You have to make it easy for people. No, you don't. If
Not
people
always.
are determined enough and they don't want your paperback book and they want an ebook instead, they will go find it on their favorite platform. People are not as lazy as people think they are. The other thing is that Gen Z, Gen Alpha, those people, first of all, they're more and more into physical books,
and they want hardcovers.
And hardcovers, special edition hardcovers are even better.
They're eating those up.
Right, they're eating them up. Special edition vinyl, special edition CDs, all of that stuff is coming back. So that physical part is coming back. Yeah. And if you make that something that, like, maybe you don't have a paperback on Amazon of your book. The only place people can get the paperback and the hardcover is on your website. They can get the ebook the other places.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Economically, marketing wise, right now for authors, that actually makes sense. Right.
Do you want to? Yeah. I mean, we could talk royalties on another podcast, but I want you to know, like, economically, like royalty wise, that is probably a good strategy depending on your project, your goals, there's a whole bunch of factors.
And return on investment on your ads, because your profit margin is high enough that you can spend more on ads and still make money.
Right.
And we could talk about that on another podcast, talk about ROI and exactly how to figure that out. But it's something to keep in your head, like, where is my greatest profit margin? Because once we're done writing the book and we're done with the craft and being all artsy about it, which I am 100% in favor of. I teach craft. I love craft. It's one of my favorite things. But once you complete it and we complete that process, it becomes a product that we need to package and sell.
Right.
That's exactly what it becomes. And so thinking about your ROI is just putting on your business hat instead of your writer hat for a minute and go, where can I sell this?
Where can I sell
for the amount that's going to put the most money in my pocket?
Right. And where can I drive traffic to keep them as a fan so that they can stay in touch with me, so that they know when I'm putting out my next book? Like, this is really kind of like longevity, right? We're trying to build the long-term client.
And it's your own website, your own email list.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So every book needs to feed the next book, right? Even if it's not in the same series, even if it's not, like, you want to make sure that people always know, like, oh, look, I have other stuff. So I always say reserve the back page for saying more by me, or a book or upcoming. I have a next book coming out, like, sign up on my website to get notified. Like, always, like, tell people that there's more coming from you.
Your
so that
lead
they can
magnet.
Right. Yes. Exactly. So then you want to build some read through, right? And what that means is having some series strategies. And when you're working on a series, if you need help with that, you can always go to a plot doctor like Troy, but you want to make sure that you have strong series read through, so that people, if you have a series, they're gonna want to stay with you. And then always, like I said, that front and back matter, making sure that back matter is strong, so you're building lead magnets and ongoing communication with your readers. If you have old titles or old covers that you might need to rejuvenate, That's another good strategy to do. In fact, it's something we're doing with some of Troy's Midlist stuff. Is we're taking some of his old backlist and we're going to rejuvenate it and re-up it basically by recalibrating some of the titles,
redoing covers,
and
covers
titles and things like that. So sometimes that's what it takes, because trends change, right? So, updating your metadata, that is also equally very very important. I used to tell my clients to go back and redo their metadata at least annually. Now I'm kind of like, if you can do it every 6 months, even quarterly, it's not a bad idea. Check it, because we've noticed that when they do away with categories or they shift the algorithm in some ways, that it will sometimes mess with your metadata. Another good thing it's good and bad, but it can be bad, is if somebody leaves a review that says something that may or may not be relatable to your book, it might trigger the algorithm to throw you into a weird category. So you want to keep your eye on those things, because like you mentioned with Vincent, like being in being in a religious category.
Recently, like I had to redo the metadata and actually have some negative keyword targeting on harvested and teaching moments, because Amazon deleted a category, whichever category it was, and which I didn't find out until I went in and looked at the metadata.
Yeah.
But the thing that I saw that made me go look at the metadata was that harvested was showing up in cozy pet stories, cozy pet mysteries.
What were you harvesting in that video or in that book?
It's I can't tell you that because that gives away the ending, but
I'm gonna have to go read the book.
But what I can tell you is what happened puppies. With that is that no. But yeah. But what was happening with that was somehow it ended up in the wrong category. So people that were looking for cozy pet mysteries were finding this dark noir psychological mystery
like I
thriller thing, right?
Harvesting puppies.
So, yeah, I mean, so it wasn't good, right? That wasn't going to be good for me. I was going to end up with bad reviews. It was impacting my sales, stuff like that. And this happened like a few months ago. There were a few of us that were like, man, all of a sudden Amazon sales just dropped, like from week to week.
And I will tell you
that week to week they dropped. And we went and looked, and it was metadata.
I can guarantee you that the reason that things are shifting again is because these big companies are implementing AI models into their strategies and into their algorithms, and those AI predictive models are changing the way things are working, and maybe not for the better, but that's the problem is that in the process, it's messing up some of your stuff, and you're going to see differences you're going to see shifts happening in your sales. So it's important that you pay attention to that. Make, calendar a seasonal review of your metadata and your keywords to make sure that things are working, and also optimize your metadata for AI searches, because AI searches are a little bit different than just the general keyword searches. You don't want to do keyword dumps anymore. And I'll tell you, AI specifically,
you haven't wanted to for a long time.
You haven't wanted to.
Dumps are bad.
They're bad idea.
Anyway.
But specifically AI, like Gemini and those kinds of things, what they're doing is they're making their searches are more aligned with meaning, finding meaning in the words so it makes assumptions and meaning correlations with the words and the sentences that you're developing in your blurbs and in your metadata. So what you want to make sure is that you're very, very clear in the delivery of that metadata, like making sure that your blurb is clearly defining your genre. It's clearly defining what your reader promise is. It's clearly defining those things so that you don't want to have a book blurb that's super vague. In fact, there was a trend there for a while with book blurbs that were like literally like, she came, she saw, she died, like it was like, and that was it. And and first of all, readers hate those. And if you don't believe me, go to TikTok and see what's going on with people in bookstores. They're like, why are we getting these blurbs like this? But the second thing is that it's it will not help you in the AI searches. And so people will not find you in AI algorithm.
Well, and here's the other thing, and that you just said that I want to just put a pin in it, and this is the thing. AI is changing search for better or for worse, we don't know. But here's the thing, it doesn't matter. Because what we have to do is deal with what is, because we can't change AI search and the way it works.
Right.
So when people say, well, it's changing for the worse and it makes it harder for authors.
Doesn't matter.
It makes it harder for authors, which means we have to work harder. That's the only answer, right?
And we have to adapt.
People that throw up their hands and are like, oh, I give up.
Don't give up.
Okay. Don't do that, because
don't give up.
Once we adapt to this change, there will be another one. Like, and the reason when you said keyword stuffing, keyword dumping, like, okay, when that first became a really big no-no was 2009.
Yeah, but people are still doing it.
Update of Google called Penguin.
Yeah.
That literally some company websites went from #1 to no longer being on the first 10 pages of Google overnight.
Yeah.
So now Google rolls these updates out all the time now, but they used to roll them out on like a specific date.
Like, and you would get notifications about them. Like, we're about to do this rollout.
And I
do you
worked
remember
for
those?
an SEO company, and it was like we got so busy at that time because we had people call up that were like in a panic. My website is gone. And I'm like, what did you do? Black hat keyword stuffing. Okay. Well, now you can't do that anymore. There was a guy that outranked the Super Bowl website with a LinkedIn post where all it was the word Super Bowl over and over again about 900 times. And he outranked the Super Bowl website for about 3 hours. If you search for Super Bowl, his LinkedIn post came up and then the Super Bowl website. Like, I'm not kidding. There was wild stuff going on. Right. I mean, yeah, I'm like, dude, good on you. Awesome. But the point is that like that doesn't work for AI. It doesn't work for regular search anymore. So stop trying to do those things and trick AI into just clearly explain what your book is about.
Yeah, because you have to know there
are people looking for it and if you put it in plain language, there are enough people looking for it that will love it, that will buy it.
And I'm always going to recommend still to stay with Dave Chesson on this. Like, he knows what he's doing at Publisher Rocket. He is always on top of it and making sure that those Amazon keywords are updated. And so you can actually see what people are searching for. I still use that tool in a lot of my other SEO research because Amazon is still very much a search engine, and it gives a lot of data and lets you know what's trending. So don't be afraid to use Dave Chesson's tool, Publisher Rocket, for other SEO data, because
use it for other SEO keywords because
he's really good at
it. Here's why, is because if those keywords work for Amazon, kind of like if keywords work for Google, they will work for other search engines too.
Yeah, they will.
Like, you don't have to change them that much from search engine to search engine. People are people, so they're still searching for the same things, regardless of where they're searching for it.
Right.
So just understand those keywords work everywhere. Relax about that. Stop trying to figure out the ones that are the best on Bing.
Yeah, which ones are working on Apple? Which ones are working on Bing? Which ones are working?
Employees using Bing anyway. And they're only doing it because they have to. So don't
when they're at work.
When they're at work, they don't even use it on their phones or at home. They don't even have it on their phones. They're like, they still use Google. So but I mean, let's just be real about how this works, right? The ideal is what you're optimizing is not just your books.
Right.
You're optimizing your career and your brand and who you are.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Midlist, your midlist, your backlist, all your list of books is doing one thing, and it's drawing people to you and your community.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And we need to talk about micro communities. And I think we'll talk about that in the next podcast, as we'll talk about how to build a micro community and what that is. But you should know that that's ultimately what this all leads to, is it's leading to creating those super fans and creating those communities where you can then communicate and nurture relationships with those people. So I want you to use the data. Figure out what converts best. And then I think that another good strategy would be to create stack lists or stacks. You can do this with series, run ads to the series instead of just a single book. Create bundles, get into some newsletter bumps with people, like do some collabs with other authors. And then always think about sales and think about funnels and think about what that looks like for you and for what you offer. So if your book is the end of the funnel, then that means you need to have a lead magnet to that sale. You need a freebie that gets people into your system so that because what leads to a sale of your book, they need to see your book between 8 and 10 times before they'll buy. That's the average. So that means ads and lead magnet and maybe some email sequences. Like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it takes about 8 to 10 times.
The only exception to needing to see your book 8 to 10 times before they buy it is your superfans.
Yep.
That is the only exception to that. So understand how important it is that you build these things and that you use all of your book catalog to build that.
Right. Exactly. All of it. Exactly. So I want you to remember to anchor your business in this longevity strategy, and then, be smart about the way you're thinking long term. It was one of the things that I was noticing with one of my clients this weekend when we were talking about the design of her debut novel, and we're designing it, and I'm trying to explain to her, like, there are some design elements we can implement, like your ornamental breaks and maybe some of the chapter headings. We can add some design elements there, or we can add some design elements with your page numbers. Like, what are some things that you were thinking? Well, funny thing is, she wasn't really thinking about that. But when I was bringing these things up to her and I was explaining that these are things that we can kind of like lead to or hint to future books or other things that she's got going on, or maybe some hidden themes that she's got, she was starting to think, oh my gosh, book 2, I'm actually going to do it this way. So maybe I want to start doing that in book 1 so that I can carry that theme out, and I'm like, yeah, there we go. So she started to think longevity,
brand,
right?
Long-term
So
brand.
You want to think about that with consistency. I also want you to remember this word adaptability and adapting. This is something like Troy and I've always talked about, like this industry shifts and changes on a dime. So you need to be bendy. You need to be willing to
be Gumby, David.
You need to be a little bit flexible here, which is really, really hard for a lot of us to do because change is hard. I completely understand. I really, really do. I'm very, very comfortable in my safety zone, but you do have to be willing to adapt and change.
Yeah, I mean, just throwing it out there, that's kind of semi off topic, but not really, is that the reason that people quit this business, the reason it's not sustainable for them, is because they're challenged to be flexible. They don't give it enough time to be successful for themselves.
Right.
And they get discouraged.
Right.
They lean into the fact of these are the things that I can't do instead of these are the things that I can do. Okay. So if you're going to do this long term, and I really sincerely hope that you are.
I hope that you are, yeah.
I really hope that you are. Then what that means is a shift in mindset and a shift in attitude towards going with the flow in kind of a big way.
Yeah.
Like there is a lot of flow to go with, as John Candy says in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, like a twig on the shoulders of a mighty stream, right? Like we're just all floating along here, right?
We're all floating along.
And the more that you can lean into that, the more that you can understand that, like, maybe you do need to change the covers on those older books because it's the same cover that's been there since 2019, and now thriller covers look different, right? Okay. Awesome. Let's do it, right? Pivot, do those things to keep yourself relevant, to keep your brand relevant. We weren't on TikTok in 2019, right? We are now. So, I mean, there's things are shifting. Direct sales were happening in 2007. They weren't happening as much in 2017. Now they're happening again. Okay, go with the flow, roll with it. As things change, be prepared to change, because that's the way you're going to have a sustainable long-term career. Don't get stuck in the rut of people saying you have to do this thing or you have to do that thing. No, you don't. No, you don't.
You can do what's right for you and rights for your project. Exactly. The difference between authors that last and those that don't, the authors that last are the ones that keep showing up. And that is just the facts. So if you keep showing up, you're going to be fine. So I want you to know that that's the kind of theme of this whole thing. But also remember that unless you stop talking about your books, they're going to continue to live on. So just keep talking about your books, keep making them relevant. So that's pretty much that as far as the podcast today. So we really appreciate you guys following with us. We are going to end with that highlight. If you have any other questions or concerns, or you want some specific help with your own project, you can always find us at printtopro.com. You can like, subscribe, follow, and get a lot of more free advice, or just listen to us rant and act stupid. That's fine too. Yeah. You're here for the ride. We're fine. But we are coming up on the next month, and we've got some exciting webinars coming up. Troy's is I can't remember what yours is about this year or this month, this year.
It's basically about the 5 different types, different writing and planning types.
Yes, this is going to be a popular one.
And if you're in the Boise, Idaho area, I will be doing a live version of this. It won't be exactly the same as the webinar, but it will be at the library at Eustick and Cole.
This Thursday or this Wednesday?
That'll already have happened by the time this podcast drops.
Yeah. Well,
I will have done this live.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll do it again.
Maybe you will do it again. But I'm really excited about just on topic of what we were talking about today is my power session this year, or this year. Why do I keep saying this year? This month will be on metadata magic and how to make
Yes.
So I'm really excited about
this one, you guys, because it is super important.
And you know what's funny is Author Nation rejected this topic for a speaking gig. So I'm going to build in all the stuff I was going to share at Author Nation. So you guys are going to get an Author Nation high level education. Whoop, whoop. I'm going to talk out my whoop. But anyway, so we're going to have a good time.
Ringtone.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So if you want to register for those free webinars, they're free, they're live. You can come. If you can't come and can't make it, there are replays. And we are very excited to announce that within this month, we will be launching a community on School so that you can subscribe and get on board with us over there. So we're really excited about that.
It'll be a way for you to get more directly in touch with us.
Yeah. And with other with writers, other writers.
Peer-to-peer discussions with other writers.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really fun space.
It's going to be we're going to make it very spacey and very happy. But that's all coming up. And so we're excited for all that. So if you want to follow us on printtopro.com, you can also go there and sign up for all the fun stuff over there. We are really grateful for all of you guys. If you have any likes, comments, please, we read them all, share them with us. Let us know if there's anything specific you want us to cover in our podcast, and we are happy to accommodate that as well. And if you're still with us, your butt looks really good.
Your hair looks amazing today.
Your hair looks freaking awesome today. Go rock it and keep writing. Stay weird. We'll talk to you guys next week.
See you next time.